Hey, if you're asking yourself, what should I base my self-worth on? I got you. I found 4 things that helped me break free of my negative thought patterns when I was wondering if I had any worth. And by the end of this video, I'm going to share with you 3 specific questions you can ask yourself to help you identify if you're struggling from low self-worth too. So, you know what's really important.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
There are some specific practices that will allow you to break free from this pattern of low self-worth. The first 4 steps are 1, meditation. Meditation is so important because it helps you to begin to understand the workings of your mind. I don't know if many of us realize fully what's going on in our heads. I know I don't. And the more I meditate, the more I become aware of the fact that I know very little about what's going on in my head. I keep being surprised by all the chaos and the noise that's in there. Had you asked me that before I started practicing meditation, I would have told you, yeah, I'm great. I know exactly what's going on. I got it under control. This is in fact a sign of a lack of knowledge. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. The Dunning-Kruger effect was a study done by these 2 psychologists who would ask people questions about their emotional intelligence and their capacity to understand themselves. And what they discovered was the less you understood about your emotional state and the workings of your mind, or the less you said that you understood, the more in fact you did. And those that thought, yeah, I got it going on, I never have a problem with low self-worth, I never have, those people, they in fact were the most difficult and struggling of the people that they evaluated. So the Dunning-Kruger effect is, when somebody says, hey, do you know everything that's going on in your emotional state? And you're like, yeah, I got it under control. Giving you a secret trick. When that question is asked, the right answer is, no, I don't know. I really struggle to know everything, right? That's the pass of the Dunning-Kruger effect. Plato said, all I know is that I know nothing. That was a man who was elevated, deeply understanding. We still rely on his words today, and yet he said he knew nothing. Meditation is what allows you to access into the many thoughts and the chaos in your mind and to begin to see and identify what is going on. It has had tons of research behind it to back up the powerful attributes that it gives you in being able to develop emotional control, emotional intelligence. These are things that you want. So lean in, practice. It's easy to do. The second thing, once you have done that, is to start the practice of self-compassion. This is a very difficult thing for me because I had traditionally beat myself into compliance with whatever it was I was chasing, right? If I slept in, or if I made a mistake, or if I would beat myself up and just berate myself and say, what are you doing? You can do better than that. You're tougher than that. And in that process, try to get myself up to the minimum bar of performance that I expected from who I was. It's a hard way to go. And sometimes when I made a mistake, it would overwhelm me so much I couldn't even address it because my own self-loathing was so much that it made it hard for me to evaluate why I had messed up in the first place. Self-compassion circumvents that need to hide. When you make a mistake, lean into yourself. Think of yourself, if you cannot think of yourself with kindness, think of yourself as a child that you love outside of who you are. I used to picture my little boy. I would picture myself talking to my little boy because I couldn't talk to myself with kindness. And I'd say, hey man, it's okay. You're all right. You got this. I know you made a mistake, but it's okay. You can recover. Or whatever it was, I would offer this kindness and compassion I would offer to someone other than myself. And what happened was it increased my grit. I got up off the ground faster. I recovered quicker from big mistakes or low feelings where I felt overwhelmed. I could find the grit to get up because I was kinder to myself and didn't beat myself up, and I learned more from my mistakes than when I did not do the kindness. When I was mean to myself, I wouldn't really learn. I'd do the same mistake again. So once you've done that, then you got to start taking action. Step 3, take action towards your purpose. Taking action towards your purpose is what allows you to then start to move again, right? These are the things that you want to do. And as you move and start to take action, your body will respond. And you can gauge how you're doing. You can watch with compassion. You can watch what's going on in your mind, right? And taking action rebuilds, honestly, that diminished feeling you may have after a mistake, because you're moving again and it reminds you that you can do this. But what's going to happen, and which always does, is you're involved in the process of change or building or creating something, is there will be another period of pain and difficulty and struggle. And at that moment, you need step 4, a belief in something bigger than you. Belief is a highly, highly unrecognized performance attribute, a belief in something bigger than you yourself. I don't care if you're atheist, a Christian, a Buddhist, Muslim, it doesn't matter who or what you are, you have to believe, and that will propel you. There was a great athlete, he was a decathlete, and he was the world record holder in the decathlon at the time that he was running in the Olympics, I think for his second or third time. And he wanted to beat his own record. And to do so, he was the current world record holder in the decathlon. And so he was going into the last event, and the scores that he had achieved throughout every stage of the event were such that if he ran the 1,500 meter race, which was the last race at the slowest he'd ever run it in his life or in his professional life, he would still win the gold. But if he wanted to break his own record, not just achieve the goal, but break his own record, he had to run the 1,500 meter race, I think 2 seconds faster than he had ever run it. And if you know anything about running, 2 seconds is a huge amount of time. In fact, in some ways, I would think almost impossible. But we see impossible stuff happen in the Olympics all the time. So he started running, and he started charging to beat his own record. And there was no need. Like, the drive to win the gold could not have been his drive. The belief in himself, well, he felt he had a chance to do it, but what propelled him as he came around on that last lap, and the lactic acid was building up in his system, and the fatigue of his body, and his lungs were burning, and the just drive to let himself slow down was upon him. He pictured himself as a little boy and the inspiration that he had got watching other athletes and how they had lifted him and inspired him to become the athlete he was on this day, performing before the whole world. And he imagined that if he were able to do this one thing, take off 2 seconds from his own time, set a new world record, and win the gold, how much it would inspire some of the children watching him. And that gave him the internal strength to face the pain that he was in, to believe that there was something greater than himself in that moment of pain, pushed him through that, and he broke the record. He got the gold. He set a new world record. He did better than he ever believed he could. What a beautiful thing, right? And so that is a story that when you hear, you can see how this man must have had incredible self-worth by believing in something beyond him. He didn't find it within himself. He found it in serving others. So you might be asking yourself, well, if I got the Dunning-Kruger effect and I think I'm all solid and good, how do I figure out whether or not I do have good self-worth? Well, here's 3 questions that you can ask yourself if you're struggling with low self-worth. Number 1, how do you speak to yourself when you make a mistake? What are the words that run through your head? Are you aware of them? When you mess up, when you really mess up, is that dialogue that runs through your head supportive? Or is that dialogue going to tear you down? You worthless piece of crap. What do you think you're doing? Did you make that mistake again? Right? There is a dialogue like that. I carry that with me. That is my natural path. I've been working to rebuild that for a long time now, and it's getting better. Listen and find out. If you don't know, take the time to meditate and begin to really pay attention to your thoughts. Number 2, how do you react to critical feedback? If you're involved in a business transaction, an athletic venture, a skill building thing, anything that you're doing that could be leaving you open to critical feedback to help you improve, when you hear that, do you meet it with defensiveness? Can you feel your heart protecting itself from what is about to come? Or are you open? Are you able to hear it without feeling diminished in who you are? If that's the case, well, you got some self-worth. If you begin to feel defensive and struggling when you're hearing critical feedback, that's a sign you've got to build yourself more. You can hear this stuff without feeling like it diminishes you when your self-worth is intact. The final thing is recognizing that within your talents and the things that you are doing is knowing how you can be of service. When you can take your talents and the things that you have and the things that you do and help others with it, if you're feeling particularly downtrodden and beaten up and not valuable at all, consider to yourself, what are the things that you can bring to the table to serve another that is maybe more downtrodden than you? If you can do that in that space of feeling diminished, it will build you. You will begin to see, man, when I help others out, I feel great about who I am. It is a real thing. By lifting others, you lift yourself. So don't forget about the Dunning-Kruger effect. If you think you've got a handle on this and everything's great, I can almost guarantee you don't. Start asking those 3 questions. Evaluate the level of your self-worth, and if it's lower than you want it to be, practice those four methods. And I promise you, it'll improve how you feel about yourself. If you do struggle with low self-worth, or if you think you're immune, I'd love to hear it. I'd like to know what you're doing to get over it, or I'd like to know the struggle that you're facing. Make some comments below. And stick around for this next video, how we can face the future without fear. Future is a terrifying thing when you have low self-worth, and fear can overwhelm you. This is how you face it. Like, follow, subscribe. I sure appreciate you hanging out with me. Click, like, subscribe, do all those things that you're supposed to do to stick with me.